What if I told you that for over 300 years, more than 1 million Europeans, many of them white Christians, were kidnapped from their villages and ships, chained, marched across the desert, and sold in slave markets in North Africa? You've heard of the transatlantic slave trade, but almost no one talks about the Barbary slave trade. This is the forgotten story of the Barbary Pirates and the white slaves of North Africa. From the 1500s to the early 1800s, the Barbary coast, modern Morocco, Algiers, Tunis, and Tripoli, was home to pirate city-states that were basically ISIS with sailboats. These weren't just random pirates. They were state-sponsored jihad fleets operating under the Ottoman Empire and local Muslim rulers. The entire economy ran on capturing and ransoming or enslaving Europeans. These guys were terrifically efficient. They'd hit coastal villages in Spain, Italy, Ireland, even as far north as Iceland in 1627. Whole towns wiped out overnight. In the 16th and 17th centuries alone, historians estimate between 1 million and 1.25 million Europeans were enslaved. If you put that in comparison to the USA, there were about 388,000 black Africans that were brought to the United States between 1619 and 1808. Who got taken in Europe? Fishermen, coastal villagers, sailors, women, children, priests, literally anyone they could grab. The raids were so bad that entire stretches of the Spanish and Italian coast were abandoned. People just moved inland because living by the sea meant you could wake up in chains on a ship to Algiers. Once captured, you were marched to slave markets of Algiers, Tunis, or Tripoli. Men were usually sent to the galleys, where the average lifespan was about 3 to 7 years, from exhaustion, disease, and beatings. The women and younger boys? Many ended up in harems or domestic slavery, and yes, that often meant sexual slavery. Conversion to Islam sometimes got you better treatment, but most refused and suffered for it. Those who converted were used as guides to conquer their own towns they had formerly lived in. They were basically sent back to capture their own people. Europe's response? Pathetic at first. Countries like France and England paid massive tributes, basically protection money, to the Barbary states. In 1786, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams actually met with the Tripoli ambassador in London and asked, "Why are you attacking us? We've done nothing to you." The ambassador's answer, which was recorded in Jefferson's notes, was basically, "It is written in the Quran that all nations who do not acknowledge Islam are sinners, and it is our right and duty to make war upon them and enslave their people." This is why the United States fought its very first foreign war against the Barbary Pirates. Between 1801 and 1805, the U.S. decided it was not going to pay any more tribute and sent warships to bombard Tripoli, which stopped the trade there eventually, but it continued in Algiers. So there was the Second Barbary War against Algiers that occurred in 1815, and this basically ended the Barbary pirate threat for good. But the slave trade didn't fully stop until the French conquered Algiers in 1830, 15 years after the transatlantic slave trade was banned by Britain. The North African slave markets were running at full speed, while Europe had already abolished slavery. 1 million plus European slaves, centuries of terror, entire coastal regions depopulated, and it's barely a footnote. Maybe because it doesn't fit the simple narrative we're usually fed about who enslaved whom. History isn't black and white. Every group has been both victim and perpetrator at different points. Another reason the Barbary slave trade remains under discussed is the lack of financial incentives for advocacy. If descendants of European slaves in North Africa sought reparations, those governments would almost certainly refuse to pay, given their historical and economic contexts. In contrast, African Americans in the United States have been free for over 160 years and enjoy far greater opportunities than in many parts of Africa. Yet significant socioeconomic disparities persist. Following emancipation, many migrated from the Deep South, where they were often trapped in sharecropping, to northern cities, where there were tons of industrial jobs during the Great Migration. Starting in the 1960s, substantial government assistance programs, including welfare reforms and affirmative action, provided further support. Despite this, Black communities have struggled to build independent industries or a self-sustaining economy on a broad scale. As a result, demands for reparations and narratives around systematic racism have emerged as a prominent industry in their own right, fueled by lingering white guilt that sustains academic studies, media coverage, and policy initiatives. Notably, states like California, Illinois, and New York, which never had legal slavery or abolished it early, have established task forces or commissions to explore and propose reparations. This highlights how the conversation around historical injustices continues to evolve, even in regions without direct ties to American chattel slavery. Next time someone says slavery was only one race enslaving another, remember the white slaves of the Barbary Pirates. Remember the Icelandic villages raided in 1627. Remember the American Marines storming the shores of Tripoli to end it. If anything, the white victims of the Barbary Pirates deserve reparations more, since they have much fewer opportunities in North Africa, but we all know that's never going to happen. Did you also know that the Arab slave trade of Black Africans was much worse than the Atlantic slave trade and lasted for 12 centuries? The only reason why there aren't more blacks in many of these Arab countries today is because most of them were castrated. Maybe I'll do another video on that subject. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to see more, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.